Liberty. Sponsored by the LaHood Norton Law Group. And now, your objection sustained. Your hosts, Karen Klaus and former Bexar County District Attorney, Nico LaHood.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sidebar. Please think about going to sidebartv.com today and getting on a social media platform, because this is the last Saturday that we're going to be doing the show on WOAI. A lot of people are a little bit confused because they said, what? This is going to be the absolute last show? No, this isn't the last show. It's just the last show that will be on the radio. You will be able to listen to the show, of course, on Facebook, YouTube, X. That's where you can actually hear the show. As always, we love for your comments to come in. We love any feedback. We just really want to use this time, though, today to remind everybody that next week, when you're suddenly waking up and seeing, oh my gosh, they're not on, it's that we are on streaming only. So if you need a reminder, we give out phone numbers, but actually you can email me at my personal email at iHeart. It's just Karen Klaus, KarenClauss at iHeartMedia.com. So let's go ahead and start the show. What do you think is trending in the news this week? Well, what isn't trending in the news this week? Every single week, it seems like nothing dies down. It is a constant barrage of things from all over the world. Yesterday, Trump seeking $10 billion from the IRS over those leaked tax records. The DOJ releases millions of pages of additional Epstein files. Luigi Mangione not facing the death penalty. And apparently, George, you're going to have to tell me about this. There's some big similarities between Minneapolis and Spain, and I need to know the explanation of why this could be a warning for conservatives. And how could we forget about Don Lemon, arrested and released? And then, of course, the DOJ opened a civil rights probe into Alex Preddy's shooting death in Minneapolis. Every week, please. Thank you very much for coming here to hear the former Bexar County District Attorney Nico LaHood, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Law Group, and George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. So, how is the Trump administration doing with the handling of the Alex Preddy shooting? I think maybe we should start with that.
Well, okay, is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to dissect. You can't get into this discussion about the shooting without truly putting a blindfold on. I mean, Lady Justice wears a blindfold for a reason. And so you already have people in their tribes. You have people defending it. You have people criticizing it. And you have to look at it objectively from a use of force standard and the legality of it. And there's a lot to consider. I mean, we don't have all the information yet. I've seen a lot of videos. Everyone's watching them in slow motion. The problem is it didn't happen in slow motion. It happened in real time. And there's a totality of the circumstances. There's an objective standard, a reasonably objective standard that needs to be analyzed in this situation. Objective from the officer's point of view, and there's Graham v. Connor, and there's Tennessee versus Gardner that gives us that framework. These are cases that give us framework on that. And so you have to look at the reasonable belief of apparent danger and was it imminent. That's kind of the overarching. Every state's a little bit different. Federal's is similar to the same, reasonable and imminent. Apparentness comes within the reasonableness analysis, at least here in Texas. Was it reasonable for them to use deadly force and the level of force that they used at the time? And was it imminent, meaning immediate at the time? And people have been distracted by a lot of things. His video from the week before is irrelevant. Alex Preddy's when he's kicking out
that's weird, but
it's irrelevant.
in the case it's not relevant, but to the officers it was.
Do we have knowledge that they knew that he did that the week before?
If it was the same officers, they did.
And some people are going to use that against them, like, hey, he wants to get revenge for that, and other people are going to say, well, hey, wait a minute, they know he's violent. So it really depends how it's used. It depends on the interviews. I want to look at the video from Alex Preddy. He had a video. I mean, he had a phone on his chest. He was recording. When did they realize he had a gun? My understanding, he was carrying the gun in the back of his lower back, not his appendix. So he was in the lower back. So that's maybe when they saw him. He was on his. I'm just giving you all the factors we have to look at. Mm-hmm. We have to look at all the chaos in the situation when you look at the totality of the circumstances. He was on his face. I mean, he was on his hands and knees. Where were his hands at the time? What access to the gun? Was it? That goes into the immediate. Were they immediately in danger at the time of the shooting? And was it reasonable for them to use that level of force? How many officers were using open hand techniques? Did they have a justifiable arrest? Was he interfering with their duties? Now, that doesn't mean that he should have been killed for it or shot for it, but I mean, you have to look at all these situations. I think this is a more challenging one for the government than it was the good shooting, and the other one where in the car, in the vehicle. This is going to be more challenging for them, definitely. Now, whether they should be prosecuted is another situation, but I think they're having a lot more challenges with this and justifying it. Now, I do not agree with Kristi Noem coming out so soon, taking the position she took. I think that was irresponsible, and I think you're seeing the administration snap back at her by bringing in Tom Homan and kind of yanking her off stage, so to speak. Nobody should have made that determination so early on. There's way too much analysis and that needed to be done before you make that determination. So I thought that was irresponsible for her to do that. I just think, look, it was under investigation. The officers perceived this, and they were under investigation. I want to know I want to see their interviews. There are no body cams, but I want to look at all the angles of the videos that we have out there. One of them that it was most relevant to me, at least from what I've seen, and I have not seen it all probably, so I'm not trying to claim that I have because it's not available. But there's an angle where you can see Alex Preddy's face and that he's on his elbows and that he's trying to shake around, and whether he's resisting arrest, it may or may not be as relevant as people think it is, because you can use force against them for resisting arrest, but can you use that level of force, remember? So you have to look at, the level of force used and was that justified. Open hand techniques to comply, all that stuff is relevant and all that. So that's just kind of a framework. I can answer more specific questions. I know where I'm leaning, at least on this, but I say leaning because I'm open to changing my opinion depending on as the evidence comes in, but there's a lot more analysis that needs to be done before anybody can make any final conclusions.
What about fog of war considerations? I mean, you've had, I think by virtually all the estimates that I've seen, you've had thousands of % increase in the number of violent outbursts and attacks on ICE, Nico, over the last year since January. And so what about that? I mean,
there's nothing in the statute that says fog of war is a consideration.
Well, I mean, I don't see how not. I mean,
it's not in the statute. I mean, you don't have to see how not. It doesn't matter what we see. It's not in the statute.
Okay, what's the statute?
Federally, it's different than Minnesota law. I mean, so it's going to be murder, manslaughter, or criminal negligent homicide. I mean, it's that or nothing, or appropriate use of force.
Okay, if you're talking about a reasonable belief of apparent danger and is it imminent, that's another way of saying fog of war potentially, because those create the circumstances
under
which
that term. So that's I don't know where that that's not fog of war is not a legal term, and it's not a legal analysis. That would fall under reasonableness.
Fine. I'm simply using a circumstantial term. I'm trying to describe the circumstances under which the officers made those decisions. You've got a guy who's walking into a situation where he's not supposed to be, and he is an impediment to a legal immigration enforcement operation. It seems to me those are circumstances, right? I mean, when this analysis is being done, the circumstances are considered. Nothing's done in a vacuum. So, and you're right. This didn't happen in slow motion. This happened just like that. And so, reasonably, what's an officer supposed to do in a situation like that? It's not like this is typically, this is peaceable. There's nothing peaceable about it. And so there's been lots and lots of examples where officers have been attacked in the exact same circumstances. We had a woman that had just been killed 2 weeks before. He was killed on January 24th. She was killed on January 7th. Mm-hmm. Before that, there's been assault after assault. So don't those circumstances weigh in on whether it would have been, or whether it would have reasonably expect that any other outcome would have happened?
Not statutorily, no. I mean, that would fall under reasonableness. And now, if you're saying that because there's been violence against these agents, that they should use violence more quickly, I don't know. That's not. Now if they knew this guy had violent tendencies and they knew that at the time of the shooting, that would play in a factor. That's why all these videos.
That's why you asked, would they have known that he?
Yeah, that's why all these videos of look at him the week before. All that's relevant for the narrative about how he's just there. He's a peaceful dude, and this is. I mean, what did that idiot Navarro said? She said that is the guy that you want your daughter to date. Well, no, I don't want my daughter to date. It's cross-dressing dude. I mean, that's a different topic. Yeah. It's irrelevant to whether he should have been shot or not. But he wasn't peaceful before. He's kicking out licenses or the car, spitting on cops, spitting on this and yelling at him. That's not peaceful. But does that mean he should be shot for it? So that's not relevant. Now, in the trial, if there was a prosecution, they say, look, this guy's a peaceful dude. Now you open the door. Now that becomes relevant in front of a jury to show his violent tendency from before. But what did the officers know at that time? That's relevant. What did they know at the time? And it's challenging because this dude was on his hands and knees and elbows when he was shot. So wound path analysis again, entry of the shots. Was he shot in the back? From my understanding, he was close range. 7 officers on him for a period of time. Look, the reality is this is a separate discussion, though, but those agents are not trained for this urban conflicts. They're just not. They're not street cops. They don't understand use of force continuum as much as other officers do. They don't have open hand techniques, control techniques. I mean, I'm watching that video. I'm like, there's 7 of you dudes on this guy. Get on him. Now it's harder to control somebody, but he's in like this turtle position.
Yeah, I saw that. There's
He's
two
in this-
videos. One,
yeah.
one looking from the street, the other
Yeah.
one looking from the wall.
Yeah.
On sidewalk. I saw the one looking from the wall, which was helpful because you can, like you said, you could see him down on his knees.
Yeah.
And there's 2 officers, and I heard at one point say, "Gun, gun, gun."
Yeah.
And then they back up, and apparently the narrative is that there was a gun on his holster that was then removed by an
It
officer.
was removed by an officer.
But the other officer didn't necessarily know that. He just
That's a
saw
matter
a
of
gun
seconds,
removed.
though, isn't it?
He
It
just
was all a matter of
He just saw an
seconds.
empty holster and assumed when they said gun, 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 that the gun had been removed by the suspect.
But that's
And
where,
then
the immediateness, imminent.
Yeah.
Was it imminent to shoot? Where was that gun? Having a gun
Yeah.
is different than having a gun in your hand. And then action beats reaction. We can talk about all that situation, but the amount of officers in the scene don't help the officer that shot. But a lot of them shot, and then they kept shooting.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about, okay, at what point was this dude in control or a threat taken
Okay.
up? We got to go to break.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we're
I
going
can't
to take
see
a
the-
break right now. And please, if you are watching on social media, know that we are in a different studio, and that's why there are sound problems. It will not be like this in the future. But if you stick with us, stay online, it will get better next weekend, maybe. We will be right back with more on Sidebar. WOAI, this is Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. If I don't have a nervous breakdown today, things will just continue to be going on. As we continue to talk about Freddie and the shooting that happened, I get what you're saying, that there was a zillion officers around him. When was the guy? The bottom line is why is this even happening? Why are...
But before we get there, that's a great question, Karen. We need to get there. But before we get there, here's what I challenge people on both sides. I mean, this is both sides. Is if this happened the other way around, and we'll get there with Don Lemon also eventually.
Yes.
But let's say that there was something happening. I can't do an equivalent on ICE. Look, I support what ICE is doing, by the way. This has nothing to do with whether I support what ICE is doing. I believe what they're doing. I think our immigration laws need to be enforced. I think that people spoke loud and clear during the last election that this is what they want. Now, how they do it, that's another topic. We talked about that last week. Enforcing immigration laws and how you do it are two different ballgames, and we need to talk about that. That's a different discussion. So we have to compartmentalize these discussions because people are getting lost in them. But if this is not a one for one, but I'm just trying to give you an example. Let's say people were protesting, conservatives were protesting because they were tired of parents getting arrested at school board meetings because they don't want their kids exposed to dingalings in the female's bathroom, okay?
Yep.
In the girls' bathroom. And we're doing that, okay? And so they're protesting, and then they switch. Now some type of federal agency comes, and you have a conservative with a handgun, and then exactly the same thing. Switch the roles. Put that blindfold on. Switch the roles. Would you, whoever you are, and I haven't taken an official position on this, by the way. I'm just giving you analysis. So before Carlos Danger and all these other people that are, and Carlos is foolish many times, that say things, you got to slow down. I'm just trying to be objective, because be careful the world you help create, because someday you may have to live in it. I'm going to remind people that you know. The flip side is a bitch. when the authorities in the other and don't think that President Newsom can't do this in about 3.5 years. So if you think that's you're crazy, Nico, you're not. So all I'm saying is flip the switch, and that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a truly blindfolded analysis based off the law, based off case law that we have, and based off use of force training that most officers do, and how it should be applied based off different standards. That's all.
I'm going to say up front that I completely agree with that. I'm not gonna pull my cousin Vinny.
But-
Everything you just said is bullshit. I actually believe the opposite. This is important. There are two issues here. Regardless of how you feel about mass deportations, was there's a legitimate discussion to be had.
Yes.
Fair enough. That's the overall political circumstances going on here, and it's clouding judgment. What Nico's saying is we have to be disciplined. If we're even to get close to justice in this issue, we got to step back, and that's why the analogy of what if you were in that situation, because people never think about that.
No.
What if you were, or if it was your kid in that situation? Now, having said that, I'm going to take the other side.
Yeah, please.
I guess I would want to know, because people are listening, I don't want to speak for them, but here's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The scenario you just mentioned, while it's possible.
Which one did?
The one that you just mentioned, what if the roles are reversed?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Conservatives don't do that. Conservatives don't walk. I mean, they just don't do that.
That's not the question, though.
No, well, I realize that, but this is where people are coming from. I appreciate the scenario and the discipline you're really appealing to here, but it doesn't happen. This is the point, that conservatives don't walk into a crap storm like this, where there's a legitimate law enforcement operation. It's constitutionally protected. It's statutorily protected. They don't walk into that and impede and obstruct, even to the point of assault agents. Conservatives don't do that. So the scenario you're describing, while it's possible, just doesn't happen. This is part and parcel for a political party that does this and pushes it and then substantiates it. And I know what you're thinking. It doesn't matter. In a final analysis, you're thinking it doesn't matter because we can't evaluate the situation through those lenses.
That's right.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We may not be able to evaluate the situation through those lenses, but popularly, that's how it's being evaluated.
Therefore, what? Play your argument out, because it sounds like you're supporting the actions of the agent. Therefore, what?
Well, I'm supporting the enforcement actions of the agent, and I'm supporting the agent being able to enforce those actions without impediments and without obstruction.
Enforce what actions? Enforce what?
They were on the streets to round up illegal aliens.
Yeah,
that's what they were on the streets to do.
I agree.
And they were carrying out a specific operation against specific individuals, and they were obstructed from doing that, which is a felony.
Okay.
Okay.
So are you? It's a question. Are you making the argument that anytime someone resists arrest, they should be shot?
No. What I'm saying. What I'm saying.
That's the analysis.
What I'm saying is that the gate for reasonable belief of apparent danger and imminency, that gate swings wide open. That's the point. Whereas it might not, like in other examples you've given, for instance, where you're sitting in a room, somebody walks in with a trench coat, and that's a really good example. It's been very helpful to me. But I'm thinking the circumstances are different here, where there's been, this whole thing, it has a backdrop of violence, of repeated violence, whether or not it's use of a vehicle to hurt agents, or whether it's that has to be considered. I don't know how that isn't considered. It seems irrational not to consider that.
It deals with this person. I'm telling you, legally, that's not as much controlling.
Explain that in the sense
because
that it
matters
person.
on this person. What if that was your cousin or your brother or your kid? And your kid shows up to this protest, and they haven't been part of this mass other protest. Just for example, and they're there, and he sees, and he's recording like he was, and then this girl gets pushed like she was. I don't know why they pushed her instead of detained her. They should have arrested her. But whatever, maybe they don't have the resources, so they shove her. And I'm not saying it wasn't a legitimate shove, but it's an assault if it's not justified, by the way. That's an assault on anybody, Class C misdemeanor regardless. Or if it injured her, she fell down, it could be a Class A misdemeanor in Texas. But regardless, I'm not saying they shouldn't have shoved her. I'm just saying he sees it.
Yeah.
He goes, hey, wait, hold on. He's getting in between, interfering with the duties of a public servant. Arrest him. That's a misdemeanor in Texas. Arrest him for that. And then if he's resisting, if he assaults the officer under federal law, any touch on the officer is an assault. Okay, legitimate. Arrest him. Beat his ass a little bit until he complies. Shoot him? That's another topic. I'm just telling you, you've got to be. I'm telling you, look, everybody can do it. I'm looking at this objectively. I'm a conservative. I support the immigration policies. I support the enforcement of immigration. I'm telling you, folks, you got to analyze this differently. And I haven't made a final decision yet because I'm just telling you, it doesn't look good. It's going to be more challenging. There's going to be a distinction and a fight on whether this is prosecuted. If it is prosecuted, well, it won't be in federal court because it seems like the administration has taken a position already, that's their prerogative. But under state court, Minnesota court law, they're going to want to prosecute if you get, a left-leaning or a prosecutor that wants to do it. And then you're going to have this battle of where it gets removed. Does it get removed to federal court and all this other stuff? That's going to be a different analysis. I'm just making an objective analysis on was it reasonable for them to think that their life was in danger of serious bodily injury or death? He's in a turtle position on his stomach in all fours with a gun on his lower back, like, where Salo has a tattoo on his lower back. On his lower back, and they see it, and then an officer grabs it. An officer takes it away.
Okay, stop right there for a moment. Just to stop for a moment.
So it's not in his hand.
An officer sees it, removes it.
Yes. So it's not in his hand.
The other officer doesn't know that.
But hold on. It doesn't matter. Well, so then they hear gun, and they shoot just because you hear gun? You shoot some guy that you don't see a gun in his hand because somebody yelled gun, and you don't. The guy you shot has no gun in his hand, and his ass is in your face, and you're okay with that shooting?
Well, I don't know if I'm okay with it.
Well, if it's your kid, you won't be. I promise you won't. You'd be going bananas. And so all I'm saying is it's that type of analysis. And again, I don't have all the facts. I'm just telling you on the surface, that's a bad look. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Back a second.
Yeah.
If it's my kid, obviously I'm more emotionally connected, but it shouldn't blur the lines of what's rational and what's not. I'm just saying. Those are separate issues, are they not?
I understand.
Obviously, if it's my kid, brother, my heart's in the issue.
Sure.
So I'm obviously more emotional.
But the law doesn't care if it's your kid or not.
I know, brother.
That's
I'm agreeing
with
you. What I'm saying is you're bringing that up, and I agree. If it's my kid, the stakes are up. Fair enough, but it doesn't change the facts on the ground. And all I'm saying is...
that's what I'm saying. I agree. That's what I'm saying.
I also agree. Well, this happens a lot between us, by the way. And it seems like he actually put me on the other end of the my cousin Vinny analysis, Karen. Everything he just said was bullshit. Because what Nico's saying is very nicely. Very nicely. He took 3 minutes to say... whatever. Yeah. Basically, it doesn't matter what you just said because the only thing that matters here, it seems to me, the only thing that matters here is whether it's proportional use of force.
That's another aspect.
That's really the only thing that seems to matter here. Is it proportional?
Big.
Does he deserve to die?
Yes.
Does he deserve to get
it's
shot?
Not that the shooting was intended to kill him, but whether you use it. But obviously, that's a consequence of that. So, is the analysis again? When you look at a perfect self-defense situation for an officer. And I've done a lot of officer defense cases. I mean, I'm pro-law enforcement. I mean, everyone thought Villalobos and Flores and Eleazar were guilty on the Melissa Perez shooting and until the trial. And we took our position. And same with Adrian and Uvalde, even though that was a use of force. That was a not use of force. Look, let me just make a comment really quick. Cops are in law enforcement is in a tough situation.
Big time.
And if our last two trials aren't an example of that, then you're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. So in October, we tried that case with 3 SAPD officers that used, quote unquote, too much force. Yep. Right? And then you have Adrian Gonzalez and Uvalde that we just finished trying that case, didn't use enough force. Cops are damned if they do, damned if they don't. I mean, think about trying to be a cop today and what kind of quandary you're in. But aside from that, we got to make an objective analysis. And when you look at it on the surface, if you were to say to a defense attorney defending an officer use of force case, give me the perfect scenario for your officer to go into a trial. It's not the deceased in a turtle position with his back to the shooting officers with 7 officers there, a gun that was never in his hand. That's not the perfect scenario.
This one's clouded a little bit because in the situations you're talking about, you're actually dealing with officers who went and deal with specific suspects and their engagement with those suspects.
On which ones?
In the cases that you were talking about before. In this particular case, they actually went targeting a suspect and these so-called protesters. And I just dismissed, I know where you're coming from. I dismissed the notion that these people are protesters. These people are not protesters in Minnesota. They are thugs. This is not First Amendment protected activity. It's not. This is not a reasonable, peaceable redress of grievances by the government. It isn't.
These people, they're engaged in thuggery. They're impeding legal activity by law enforcement. This is not so. In other words, this guy just walks into it. And so we're getting to a point here where you literally can't have any so-called protesting whenever there's a law enforcement operation. I can go in and start with my little picket signs in the middle of an officer trying to engage a suspect. That's not appropriate to protest.
Argue that in court, Nico?
No.
The line of thug besides protest?
It doesn't matter about the thugs and behind this. It's this guy. Now, does it matter in the totality of the circumstances? Sure, it
that's
does.
all. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
That's what
I mean,
was
I'm going to look at that. Look, if I'm defending these officers, I'm going to make that argument under Graham v. Connor, under Tennessee v. Garner. I'm going to look at but it's an objective, reasonable standard, and they're going to look at everything. I got that, but you still can't ignore the fact. Everything I agree with George, by the way, what he said. But does it apply to this situation specifically at the moment they use deadly force? And you're going to look. I'm telling you, you're going to look at 7 officers. You're going to look at what control they had over him. You're going to look at the position of the deceased. You're going to look at whether he had a gun in his hand. I mean, that matters. I mean, a gun in someone's hand matters. And the fact that someone yelled gun, gun, okay, you yell gun, gun, you just don't start indiscriminately shooting. And you have a guy in a turtle position and you shoot this guy. So all I'm saying is I got to look at more. I want to see his camera. I want to hear their statements. What are they going to say? Someone said that the guy in the gray outfit, the officer, the agent, that it's a SIG P320 and there's like 100 lawsuits or whatever that they kind of had these unintentional discharges. Okay, does that matter? Did that gun discharge? I've seen it slow motion. I don't see a recoil in his hand. He's holding it with one hand. I can't tell if his finger's in the trigger guard. It's a weird hold. It's really kind of a little bit of an irresponsible hold because he swings it backwards and the barrel's facing could potentially ricochet if it was discharged. I don't know. There's no way to find out. Gunshot residue is going to be all over those officers because of the firings. So gunshot residue is not going to be a deciding factor here. It doesn't really show what we need to show. I mean, if you knew that gun was cleaned before, and then you saw, you can tell when a gun's been shot after that, that'd be different. We don't know if this guy cleaned the gun. We don't know how many bullets he had in the magazine versus a law enforcement officer that we know they have 15 rounds or 16 rounds, one in the chamber. So if you're missing 2, you find the shells, you find out that, okay, there's 16 minus 2, you know how many rounds were shot. It's not that same scenario. All I'm saying is, was it reasonable for them to use that force, number one, and then I know we got to go to break. What apparent danger is under the reasonableness versus actual danger, and then was it imminent? That's it. And so a turtle position of a deceased shot in the back with no gun in his hand is not a good look initially. We'll have to look at the totality of the circumstances.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now, but we'll be right back with more on Sidebar.
This is News Radio 1200 WOAI San Antonio, an iHeart radio station. Guaranteed you. And now, the latest news, weather, and traffic from the GiveMeTheVin.com Sell Your Car studio.
I'm Eric Lancome at News Radio 1200 WOAI. The borders are refocusing on criminal legal aliens in Minnesota. Details coming up. First, traffic and weather together.
From the WOAI Traffic Center.
Face out northbound between I-10 and Brooklyn, we have construction that has the roadway down to just 1 lane. On I-10 eastbound, off-ramp towards UTSA Boulevard is closed due to construction. I'm Alexis, News Radio 1200 WOAI.
Cold weather advisory.
1200 WOAI. This is Sidebar. Thank you so much for being here and listening. And remember, this is the last week that we're going to be here on WOAI, but we will continue doing the show at exactly maybe 30 minutes later, 9:30 maybe. But we will be here between 9 and 9:30, so please stay with us. And remember, it's going to be on social media, so you got to find where you're going to watch it. Whether you are a Facebook fan or YouTube, you can do it all and continue with your comments just like you always do.
Nothing's going to change other than the
Right.
fact that we're not going to be on the radio anymore. That's it. I
Exactly.
mean, and there's different reasons for that. We can talk about that at the end. But yeah, please join us. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep doing it. Salo's still with us. He's going to be, we're hopefully going to focus more on trying to expand our footprint in the social media space, which I think is good. I mean, radio is just changed in lately, and so and it's currently and so we would say, okay, what's good stewardship of our resources? Because
Correct.
we don't have any sponsors yet. We're hoping to that, but so we're George and I fund this ourselves, which has been a labor of love and it's been wonderful. We don't no regrets on that, but it's time to be think about, okay, are we being wise with our resources? And so we made a decision collectively as a group to go all in on the social media aspect of it. That's all. So we're still going to be here.
And I do want to tell people that you can always ask me a question because, if anybody has ever come on early, I do the garden show with David before this, and my email is still the same, KarenKlaus at iHeartMedia.com. KarenClaus at iHeartMedia.com. Any question that you have, you can directly email me, and I would love to talk to people about contributions.
Yeah, please do that. But speaking of this, so I'm a constitutionalist. I am, and it's not selective, and it doesn't matter if my tribe, it applies just to my tribe or someone else. I mean, I truly work very hard and diligently, professionally and personally, to wear the blindfold that Lady Justice wears, and I think I've shown that. I hope I've shown that, and I think I do that. I mean, I do that every day. But this argument out there, and I completely disagree with the administration on this, and not even 99%, 100% disagree on whether he had a right to have a gun. I mean, he shouldn't have a gun. You can exercise two rights at the same time. He absolutely had a right to. You don't like it, then change the laws. He had a right. He legally carried. He was not a felon. He's not a member of a gang. He wasn't, and so he has a right to have a gun. Even at a protest. Now, it wasn't a protest. I get it, George. I understand your point, and you're right. I agree with that analysis. Arrest his ass. But, I mean, this is a very slippery slope to a Second Amendment advocate like I am. I mean, then you start saying he shouldn't have had a gun, 2 magazines with a lot of dangerous stuff in it. Trump used the right terms. I mean, that was very irresponsible language, in my humble opinion. This is separate issues. So somebody, unfortunately, and he didn't even abuse the gun. He never took it out. I mean, it's in the back. It's in his lower back or wherever his gun was carried.
But when you're charging a police officer, even
he wasn't charging a police officer.
Protest,
he wasn't charging a police officer. He got in between. He got in between a police, and he should have been arrested for that. And I don't mind him having a broken jaw or a black eye for it as you get him into custody. So be it. Tough, too bad, buddy. Mm-hmm. But again, it's whether the deadly force should have been used against him is different. And he had every right to have a gun, and that doesn't just apply to conservatives. If he misused that gun, different ballgame. We're there, and it doesn't mean take guns away from people because one person misuses a gun. Again, we don't judge an ideology by its abuse. We don't judge a right by its abuse. We judge the right by its right, by what it is. And so that's it. I wanted to keep that because there's that argument too. You shouldn't have a gun. He shouldn't have done this. Now, whether it was wise to have a gun at a whatever it was, protest rally, whatever trouble he was trying to make, different ballgame. Yeah. You can talk about his parents saying don't go there, don't cause trouble. All that's relevant. All that goes into whether he's peaceful or not. If the government were to bring up, this guy was a peaceful dude, and they have witnesses from The View come in and think that, this guy was peaceful.
He was a nurse. He just wanted to help people.
You want your daughter to marry him.
Yeah.
No, that's a different than now. Again, I'm compartmental all of these things. I don't support what this guy advocated for. I don't support whatever he does in his personal life. It seems like I don't support a lot of things, but he had a right to carry a gun, and it doesn't look like he misused that gun. I have not seen evidence that he misused that gun. He never drew it out. So that's it. I want to make that as a side note.
Why is George shaking, though?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to part and parcel everything. I don't want to miss anything because I don't want, because I have my biases and I'm trying to make sure they don't govern here. Trying to look at this as fairly as I can. And I question for you. So if an officer pulls me over and I've got a gun in my vehicle, am I required to inform?
In your vehicle?
Sure. Uh-huh. So I'm in the officer and I got a gun in my vehicle.
Yeah.
And as is often the case, because I always carry a gun. Nico is always reminding me it doesn't do any good if it's not chambered. I used to be chambered.
we'll set that aside for another conversation. But so I had, there's a gun in my vehicle. Am I required by law to inform the officer that I have a gun in my
Not in
person?
Texas, but you should.
Okay.
Not in Texas.
I'm, I'm curious because I'm just
some laws, some states you do, not in Texas.
because I'm wondering how that transfers to a situation like this, where I walk into a situation where I'm actually impeding a law enforcement operation, and I've got a gun, and he didn't inform the officers that he had a gun, but yet it seems to me in a vehicle he would be required to do that in certain states, but not the state of Texas.
Not Texas.
I wonder how it is in Minnesota. So anyway, I'm just curious how that would fall in. He would be under, because then he wouldn't have a right. You have a right, but rights come with conditions. How you exercise your right determines whether you get to keep your right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying he's walking in. Of course I remember I sent that text too, and I heard Trump say that. But you know, with a gun, well, he can have a gun.
Yeah.
It's actually rather American.
Yep.
That's the only thing I agree with this guy. Carry that gun.
Yeah.
I'm all over it. But does he have a right to carry the gun and not inform those officers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. What was it? What we talk about?
No,
Guys,
hold
what
on a
was in our
second,
minds?
because it's an analogy here.
Well, I know, but what are we doing here? I got a gun. I got a gun. No, I mean,
no.
no. Just keep it. Don't grab
but-
it. Don't brandish
The
it.
other side, Kyle Rittenhouse.
But look, but first of all, Salud, thank you for. I've had it on my mind to bring it up, but I didn't. Look how many conservatives, like myself, was defending Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
He's got is in the street walking with the gun.
Yeah.
Arguably, but he's trying to get away towards whatever, all that stuff. I mean, the guy had a skateboard, and everybody's okay with it. I'm just saying. I mean, that's a completely different scenario, and everybody was okay with that. So I mean, and he was protecting property. I get all that, and I supported the verdict, by the way, in the
Right,
Kyle
because the
Rittenhouse.
circumstances are entirely different.
I understand, but all I'm
everything
saying,
seems the same until you realize that it's not the same. They're totally different circumstances. Fair enough, though. But I still got to come back to this because I'm stuck on this. So I'm not saying he's going. No one's going to go around saying I got a gun. But I'm saying you've got officers there. If I'm sitting in my vehicle, and I didn't know that was not the case in the state of Texas. Thanks for clarifying. I wonder what it is in Minnesota. I wonder if the Minnesota standard is if you get pulled over and you're in your vehicle, do you have to inform an officer that you have a gun? If the answer is yes, but in this particular case, he didn't have to inform an officer. In fact, he walked right into the middle of a law enforcement operation.
So let's say he didn't inform the
Is that a
officer.
consideration?
well, no.
Could that be a consideration?
Could. I mean, I guess I got to keep an open mind and say could. I mean, even if he didn't inform the officer, was the officer in danger because he didn't inform him? No.
What's
If they didn't put hands, if they didn't turn into a squabble,
Yeah.
and they were just yelling match, and he walks away, no one knew he had a gun, nobody's in danger, nothing happened because he never touched it or
But there's a
brandished
reason
it.
why the statute in certain states require that you inform the officer. What's driving that, you think?
Officer safety, it depends because
Okay,
obviously
so it's
in
an
Texas,
officer safety consideration.
Well, obviously in
isn't it?
Texas they don't care about that as much because they care about your right to have a gun, and as long as you don't misuse it or brandish it or point it at an officer, you don't have to tell an officer you have a gun. You don't have to, now if you have a license to carry, you got to show your license to carry, but there's really no consequence to it. I mean, it's not like there's a charge if you don't show your license to carry to a gun when you pull over.
Should he have been arrested the week before when he kicked
Yes,
off
absolutely.
a tail
He
light?
was recovering from a broken rib from that.
And if they would have arrested him, maybe there would have been a condition not to carry a gun. Maybe he would have listened to that. Maybe he would have gone in and out of the justice system. He would have been in federal system. So yes, he would have had a condition not to have a gun. Look, he should have been arrested, but we don't have the resources. Maybe. I don't know, but he committed criminal mischief on a federal agent on a vehicle. He damaged federal property, so he should have been arrested the week before, the 11 days before, whatever it is. But again, I think we're getting. This is what happens, because I think, and George is very forthcoming about it. We all have our biases, and the progressives do too on the left and all that. I'm trying to really be objective. And making the analysis based off logic and basing off reason, the law, and what we know at this point. I'm just saying, when you have a deceased in a turtle position with no weapon in their hand, and the weapon that the person had on their body is in a cop's hands, in an agent's hands, at the time you got shot, you got problems. That's all I'm saying. You got problems.
And the problem with
go ahead.
the problem with no, please go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, how many seconds was that entire incident? To me, I had to watch it 100 times, and I still couldn't tell what was what in that squabble.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go slow, and we have you can't have hindsight 20/20. Some of these case law says.
Few seconds.
Yeah. When you sync them together, you still watch them individually. Just, you know what I mean? But you go back and you know where you're at each time. And so it is helpful. I've done that on many cases. We do that in a lot of video cases we have. all I'm saying is at the moment, if you think about it that way, think about it this way. Like I just said, you have a person in a turtle position with no gun in his hand. The gun is in the officer's hand. That's going to be a problem. That's it. I'm not saying that he should be prosecuted. I'm not saying I wouldn't defend him. I'm not saying that there's not a defensible argument. I'm just making an objective analysis that that's a problem.
It's not as clean as the Renee Cook
not
situation
even close.
from January.
Look,
7th.
I think the good situation. I think is a justifiable shoot. I mean, you have an officer that was injured. You have a vehicle that actually struck him. That's an aggravated assault against an agent. Attempted capital murder if he was in Texas. I mean, attempted capital murder, arguably. I have a case like that's going to go to trial in June probably. We're defending an officer, and so that's a legit. Shoot to me doesn't bother me at all. I know at first everybody's like whatever, and then until different angles came out. This is a different scenario. It's a very different scenario. And I just think that there's trouble with it. And so that's why I said Kristi Noem coming out so quickly, taking the position she did, I thought was irresponsible.
But if we might pivot to the second issue, which pertains to both cases in the exact same way, and that is that I know neither of these individuals should have been there. That's the issue. Neither of them should have been there. And why were there? And so just getting back to this is not an isolated event. She wasn't working by herself, and he wasn't working by herself. The evidence has come out that shows these guys are part of a network of obstruction. And I wonder if that's going to be considered, not to bring back the first issue, when this goes to trial. Maybe I don't know if it will go to trial. We'll see what happens.
Okay, I guess for our next topic,
Don Lemon,
I want to ask the question: Is he a journalist or a participant? I don't know. That's going to be pretty tough because there are so many of, I don't even know what they're called. It's something like a journalist that has an opinion. I don't even know if that exists. We are going to take a break right now, but we will be right back with more on Sidebar. $1200 WOAI. Yes, we're going to talk about Don Lemon.
Don Lemon.
Journalist or participant. Now, Nico, all the videotape that he did when he was doing his live stream beforehand, does that matter? Even though he was questioning the participants of this so-called protest.
Yeah, that's very relevant. It's going to be used against him. It's going to come back and bite him in the ass. What an idiot. I mean, look, the guy's an idiot. I think he really irritates me. I try not to use the descriptives like that when I'm trying to analyze someone's behavior, but he's really idiotic, and his logic is ridiculous, and I don't know what made him change. Because even back then when he was telling, black people pull up your pants and quit doing this and all that stuff, and people are like, man, that just seems reasonable. I mean, he was still the same lifestyle back then as he is now, so I mean, nothing changed on that, but there was something that changed. I think he bought into this woke progressive thing. I don't know what he really believes. And, I don't know. I mean, he hates white people except for his husband because his husband's white.
That is just
whatever.
mind-blowing.
I mean, I guess it's like, I hate all white people, but my white guy. I mean, I guess I don't understand. But he said, he's wrong. There's no immunity for journalists. You don't get to violate someone's First Amendment right with a First Amendment right to freedom of press. He's completely wrong. And he says in the church, you can protest at any time. That's the point, to disrupt. No, it's not. The point of protesting is not to disrupt. And you can't protest at any time. It's got to be peaceful. And so that's going to be an analysis on whether it's peaceful to make it uncomfortable. And that's what they're doing. So he's agreeing that they're making it uncomfortable, not trying to air their grievances to the government. I mean, this is a church. I mean, so that's why you have the FACE Act. I mean, you have to make people uncomfortable. Well, all right. I guess what if there was a LGBT meeting, would you be okay with that, Don? Or if you go to a mosque or you go wherever, of course not. No, they would never try that anywhere else. It's only because it's a Christian church. And then they targeted a white Christian church. I don't know why they didn't charge a black Christian church, which I can't stand those qualifiers, black and white, just predominantly the attendees. Not that it's only for whites, but it just ends up attracting more whites or blacks or Hispanics or whatever it is. But they wouldn't do that anywhere else. Don Lemon's a hypocrite. He's not a journalist. And I think the fact that he actually recorded it before, because he flew to Minneapolis with intent to participate in this quote-unquote operation, and the statute's going to look at whether he aided, abetted, or encouraged a crime under the law of parties, or RICO, or whatever you want to say. And so he's not immune. This is a First Amendment freedom of press BS argument he made does not give him immunity from prosecution. So to be honest with you, and look, and I'm not for using the justice system. You guys know how I am as a weapon, but it needs to be a deterrent. And if they didn't prosecute Don Lemon and his cohorts for this, I think about where it goes. I mean, people should be, and I really wish people on the left would agree with this, because again, I'm gonna play it on them now. Switch the roles. What if this wasn't a church with predominantly white folks in it, and since Don Lemon practices different Christianity than their Christianity, which I don't even know what the hell that means. But people would be going bananas, and so I call BS I'm an equal opportunity offender, Karen, and so I try to be objective about my analysis. And look, I think this is a just prosecution, whether they get a conviction or not. I think Don trying to hope that a Minneapolis jury is going to save him. This is in the federal statute. They're going to be looking at counties outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So he's not going to get the jury pool that he thinks he's going to get. He's going to get a lot of people that are actually from that church or like those people in the church. So it's going to be an interesting deal, and he's got a right to a due process and to a jury of his peers and cross-examination and vigorous, effective assistance of counsel. And then let's see where the chips fall. But and on what I've seen, I support this prosecution.
Yeah, I want to go back to your assessment of idiocy, because anybody who's read the First Amendment knows that it's a legitimate, peaceful redress of grievances against the government. You can't go walk into a church. That's not in the First Amendment, to go in and obstruct a worship service in a church. So it's inapplicable.
That's right.
You can't do whatever you want in the name of the First Amendment. And these guys know that. But see, here's the issue, and they're very effective at doing this. This is a left-wing ideology. It is a disgusting, anti-American, self-destructive ideology. Totally. They know that conservatives are paralyzed by their own value system, and they use our value system against us. They have no value system, except that they don't have any value system. And that's why we say hypocrisy isn't a bug on the left. It's a feature. It's central to their value system. The more hypocritical they are, the more effective they are in their view, and kudos to them for doing it, they would say. But not for conservatives. They're not concerned about us walking into their Unitarian, Universalist, liberal white churches in the Northeast. They're not concerned about that because it never is going to happen. We don't do that kind of stuff. We don't barnstorm mosques in the name of white supremacy. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. It's a non-existent figment of the imagination. But they're very good at fanning these sort of paper tiger concerns and then putting political power behind it. And Americans, I'm worried, Nico. I really am. I'm worried that Americans are going to be duped. I worry that Americans don't have the stomach to implement what it is that they voted for in November of 2024. It was always going to happen this way. I've asked the question. It's a legitimate question. Please explain to me, anybody who's listening, I send a note to it is sidebartv.com on Facebook. Please let me know. Somebody just sit down and craft, in your view, an opinion on what a proper, nice, sort of sanitized way there is to remove 10 million people that have come in the last, and I'm being conservative by the latest CBP numbers,
14, right?
10 million people in the last 4 years, just in the last 4 years. Please tell me, how was it not ever going to end up this way?
But see, but people weren't thinking that when they voted. They felt the pain of this invasion of illegals, and you know, that's why you had the Valley that voted for Trump and went red, because they became single issue voters. And I told you that I was there too, but they didn't play it out. That see, you're too logical. People are emotional. You know that in general.
I'm with you, brother. And
so
yet
they
the
didn't play it out.
opposition, and kudos to them, thought everything out.
Sure.
Stripped the borders down, let an influx of people come in, which, by the way, this is all about the census. It's all about the census. It's all about a voting block. Yes, the great replacement theory isn't a conspiracy. It's actually completely verifiable. That's the first thing they did. And then they knew once they're in the American interior, good effing luck getting people out of here. Good luck with that. Talk about using American laws against Americans in the name of empathy and compassion by people who couldn't care less about Renee Good and Alex Brady. These people couldn't care less about them. They're scapegoats in a disgusting, evil venture to strip Americans of their own legitimate political power. This is stripping Americans of their own electoral power, Nico. This is what's infuriating, and people know that at a gut level, and trying to keep these issues separate as you're talking about.
Well, so,
Justifiable use of force and due process. See, they knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're fomenting
It's straight
hatred.
out of their playbook. I mean, they're not stupid. I mean, just
Communism 101.
Yes, it's straight out of their playbook. Look, I mean, where's this? Look, selective outrage is not outrage to me. It's not. I mean, where was the outrage for that Ukrainian girl on the bus that got shanked by that dude that happened to be black? Switch the roles. If that guy was white and that the Ukrainian girl was from Nigeria, there would be riots in the street.
Yeah.
So I call BS on this selective
Irina
outrage.
Zarutska, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to butcher her name. Thank you for your pronunciation. But I mean, I'm just saying, this is selective. I don't. It's Don Lemon is a fraud. I mean, he doesn't believe what he believes. He's telling people to sign up to his YouTube channel or whatever. Please sign up, like, whatever. Look, if Don Lemon, if that fool would have been there after they did this invasion of the church, and was just recording it and asking questions and observing, I don't think he's in the same boat. I don't think it'd be a good prosecution, because now he's just notating and reporting and what's going on after. But the fact that he was with them before, the fact that he said turn the cameras off so we don't let the plan out or whatever the hell that I saw the clip on, I mean, that just shows that he was aiding, abetting, and encouraging this, and he knew about it and he furthered it. So look, I mean, it's whether a jury convicts him. If he goes with them and stays outside, that you can still get under law of parties. You can still get him if you wanted to. It'd be weaker. But the fact that he went in with them, he was ahead of them. He knew the plan. He kind of concealed the plan because he didn't want to schedule
Kisses
it.
on the cheek to the.
Well, I don't even care about the kiss on the cheek so much. It just shows familiarity. But I mean, it goes, what did he know and what was he trying to further? Look, I mean, you can't let this happen. I'm telling you, you're going to have true war in the streets if this continues. And when George says the conservatives don't do that, until they do that, I'm telling you, at some point, even conservatives are going to say, "Screw that."
Enough.
And I'm
Excellent.
and
Excellent
that's
point.
what I worry about. That's why I'm
We should
saying,
discuss
and
that.
God forbid, if we'll talk about that on the after show. God forbid if that happens, then what? Now our analysis changes? No, the analysis shouldn't change. That's what I'm saying. I'm not encouraging that to happen. I'm just saying, if that happens, what does your opinion changes on these things? But I know we got to wrap up because we're going to do the after show here, guys. Look, being on the radio was a blessing. I mean, right? We showed up on the radio. Karen and I started all those years ago. It's back in 19, right? Is
A long time ago,
2019. It was just Karen and I for a year or something it was, and then COVID happens, and then we dragged this Mama Luke in, and then he's like herpes. We couldn't get rid of him, and so which we love him, you know. And I mean, so I'm just joking. And so we're all here, and then we expand into your iPhone, Karen, because people
I'm so
wanted
sorry.
longer.
Yes, I
No, it's all right.
apologize.
We look like a bunch of sardines in the little short picture, but we talked, and then we
With
expanded.
herpes, apparently.
Sardines.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy you some Trojans. And then Saulo, starts working with us, and obviously, makes it better. And then, but it's time to move on. As we made our analysis, there's been a lot of challenges working, and I'm not being disrespectful. Kurt has been amazing. Kurt working with iHeart has been amazing. Love Kurt. He's the Santa Claus in December, and he's wonderful.
waving.
He's waving.
On the
Thanks, Kurt,
cameras,
brother. I
yeah.
hope we stay in touch. I
Yeah.
just think he's a beautiful individual.
Yeah,
and so what an
Miss you,
honor to
Kurt.
know him. But this organization is not beautiful. So I mean, we've had a lot of challenges with iHeart, from the equipment to the way they're working with us on doing our show and just give accommodations.
Basic cooperation.
Kurt has been a diamond in the rough here, and so have you, Karen. And so that's why you're with us and no longer with them. And so that's not a shot on the way out, but I just really didn't respect the way they treated us at the end, and we had already decided to move on. So that's that. It's a chapter over. We wish iHeart well. We definitely wish Kurt well, and we hope to stay in touch with him. But everybody else has been with us, and just go. Please continue on the journey with us. If you listened on the radio, continue. We're going to be here next week. We're going to be here the week after that, God willing. And it's going to be me, George, Karen, and Saulo moving forward together and trying to expand our footprint on social media. So thank you guys again. Kurt, thank you again, brother. We'll be praying blessings over you, and I hope we stay in touch. And Karen, we met you through iHeartRadio, and now you're stuck with us. So
I know. That's okay. That's okay. But I do want to go back and tell everybody, if you have a question, if you have any questions, you can still reach me. You can email me, and it's Karen Klaus, and you can do it at me.com.
I will spell your name so they can know.
KarenClauss at me.com. Just email me. And I have several people that ask, what is going to happen? Because they aren't on a social media platform right now. Or how do I give money? And that's what I'm going to be trying to get going. And we really need your help.
Sponsorships.
And I definitely am the person to talk to. You've got to email me. You've got to tell me, I'm interested. How do I do this? And I can explain it all.
And Karen, where again, one more time, where do people go when you say see you next week? Where?
All you have to do is right now go to sidebartv.com or next Saturday, sidebartv.com, and find the social media platform of your choice. If you're on Facebook, stay on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, stay on YouTube.
Where are we at, Casalo? Facebook, YouTube,
X,
and X. Those three, right, for now. Facebook, YouTube, and X. You'll find us, and it'll be under Sidebar. Sidebartv.com. That's what everything there. If you go to sidebartv.com. So, Karen.
But right now.
What?
Stay for the after show.
Oh, yeah, we're going to stay for the after show, guys. But for the radio listeners, please find a platform to continue with us. We really appreciate you guys. 9:30 next week. Yeah, we're gonna start at 9:30, and there's not going to be any commercials other than the ones for sponsors if we get those, and so we'll go from there. God bless you guys. The listeners, hope we don't listen to you. The radio listeners, please find a social media outlet. It's been a wonderful journey. We're going to continue with you. Join us on the after show. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Now anybody can say anything that they want.
Shit.
No, but I mean, look, I'm sure there was some questions on the ICE shooting or on Don Limon or whatever. I mean, I really want to, moving forward, I mean, we don't do this during every show, but there's got to be a portion where we can interact and take questions and I like the interactive portion of it as well, and which gives us a little more free leeway on the show.
I also think that going back to what you both were saying, if it was your own kid that took the gun and was in the middle of the situation, one, as George said, it probably wouldn't happen. But two, if it did happen, I feel like most conservative would say, "What the hell were you thinking, kid? Goodbye." I'm going to help you all I can.
If Alex Preddy had listened to his parents, he'd be alive today because they told him to stay the hell off the streets. Because remember, he had just had an engagement and one didn't go very well. I think I've read some reports that he had a broken rib that he was healing from that. I mean, his family.
But there's an argument also, and again, brother, I'm just trying to be objective. There's an argument that if the officer hadn't shot the gun, he'd be alive too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so we can play that both ways. All I'm saying, we can do that both ways. And again, it really comes down to not what his parents' advice he gave him. That's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I got that.
I get that
It comes to, at that moment, the reasonable belief, and was it imminent? Did they believe they were in danger of serious bodily injury or death? That's going to be the analysis. Those 7 officers, did they believe that if they didn't shoot, they didn't discharge that weapon and that projectile come out of that barrel, that they were going to be either seriously injured or killed?
Well, they're obviously going to say yes.
Well,
You're
sure. Of course.
You're going to say, is it reasonable to believe that?
Fair enough.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It
So-
was that reasonable assessment. Yeah.
And that's where the circumstances come in, and I'm sure they'll weed through all of that.
Yeah.
That'll be really interesting to see what happens.
It's going to be challenging,
Yeah.
you know, what's going to happen. But there's a Second Amendment aspect to this that I'm not happy with Trump on the position he took. And Second Amendment advocates are up in arms about what Trump said. I mean, if you're not paying attention, pay attention. It's legit. I mean, you don't infringe on that. This is not that case, and you cannot start saying, oh, you shouldn't have a gun. Well, okay, was it wise to have a gun? That's
No,
different.
yeah.
But shouldn't. I mean, don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do when it's my right. Because again, I mean, what if I'm out there protesting against the government, you know, legitimately, and I'm being peaceful, and then someone comes up to me like what you call it? Think about that guy that got prosecuted, and I always forget his name, for the abortion clinic prayer on the
I don't
side.
know his
Craig
name.
Houck.
Craig,
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you. What's his last name?
Houck.
Houck.
H-A-U-C-K, I believe.
Houck. Okay, Craig Houck.
He's a sidewalk
Let's
counselor.
say, okay, play this out.
Catholic sidewalk
So
counselor.
they go up to him and they start rah, 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 and they get him. And let's say it's instead of that dumb dick that comes up to him, it's an agent that comes up to him. Hey, you're violating the FACE Act and all this other stuff. Get out of here. What are you talking about? Take my kids here, whatever. And they get a squabble, and then he falls on his face. And it's Craig Houck in that same scenario, and they shoot him the same way with 7 agents on him in his back, and his weapon was in the back of his low back, and he never touched it, and he's on his forearms. People would be going bananas. Bananas, rightfully so. So all I'm saying is you got to play it that way. You got to put that blindfold on. And if this is a principle, you're taking a principle stand, that principle applies always.
So-
to you, to your kid, to me, to my kids, everything.
And so there's literally 2 narratives and 2 different discussions with virtually equal intensity going on at the exact same time. And I think this is orchestrated. And while it's necessary, it's also orchestrated. You've got, here we are talking about due process. We're talking about, you know, what was it justifiable force? Was it proportional? This is while this is necessary, this is part of what's being orchestrated. Let's bury the narrative in that, where the people who are victims are no longer victims. And the people who are actually creating this bullshit are the victims. This is all rather orchestrated. And then there's this other conversation about mass deportations. My worry is that this administration is going to take their eye off the football. I'm very worried about that.
What do you mean by that?
And I just want to say this, if this White House in any way, and I saw an X post, and Salo, I didn't know if I should read too much into it, and maybe it was just Trump strategizing while he was sending Tom Homan out there, which, by the way, I think was a good decision. I think Tom Homan is a good communicator. I think he's a serious person. And I do think he knows how to negotiate outcomes in exactly these circumstances. He has been doing it for decades. So I think it was a good, just kind of a good reset. So kudos to him for that. What I didn't like is an X post that said that they were going to target criminal illegal aliens. Well, good for you. That's not enough. And that is not what people voted for. And poll after poll after poll has shown that. I mean, we can go back to September of 2025, and I'm using their polls. The New York Times Siena poll, which is a poll I hate, but let's use their polls, which they think is wonderful. Which basically said all Americans, a poll of all Americans was that 54% of people believe that we ought to have mass deportations.
When was that?
September of 2025. And then a Harvard-Harris poll in December of 2025 said that 80% of Americans, this is 3 months later, believe that we ought to have mass deportations of criminal illegal aliens. And interestingly, same number, 54%, still believe that you ought to have mass deportations just in general. That's in December of 2025. In January, same thing. And then you literally had Rasmussen, January 14th, this is 10 days before the shooting of Alex Preddy, 7 days after Renee Cook, 2/3 of Americans believe you ought to continue to have mass deportations. They didn't distinguish between whether it was criminal illegal aliens or just whether you're illegal or not. But however, here's another interesting thing. There's other polling that asks people whether the country is moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the numbers flip.
What does it
So
say?
Americans are saying, yes, we ought to continue to have mass deportations, but they're saying they think that the country is not heading in the right direction. Which seems to me, this is why I worry. I don't I wonder if Americans are saying, oh, yes, absolutely, mass deportations, absolutely necessary. We got to get our country back. But at the end of the day, they're not willing to do what it takes to make that happen. They don't like the furor. They don't like the intensity. They don't like people up in arms. They don't like all these questions about due process. They don't like seeing, and by the way, Democrats are very good at this. They don't like seeing, grandma in handcuffs. They don't want to see shopkeepers in handcuffs. They don't want to see that. They don't mind seeing Tren de Aragua, but they don't want to see illegal aliens. That's what I'm deriving from this. And I'm worried about that because there is no other way to do that. The separate discussion, Nico, about whether force is appropriately used or not. I get it. I'm just saying in terms of policy. And I'm very, very concerned. And I just want to say this because we talk a lot about the Second Amendment. Here's my issue, and I'll shut up. Pick an issue you hold dearest. Second Amendment, crime, energy, abortion, DEI, healthcare, religious liberty, the economy. None of those things matter. Not one of those things matter. They're all subordinate to immigration if we don't get this shored up. Very, very concerning. We have millions and millions of people here that substantiate a voter block for the Democrats. There is research to show that if you use 2025 population estimates in the 2030 census, which is just around the corner, you're seeing a mass move of people from normally blue states like California and New York, even states on the fence like Illinois, to red states like Texas and Florida and even Arizona. You're seeing a flux of individuals now from blue states to red states. This is an apportionment issue. You're going to have a dissolution of congressional seats in every one of these blue states. Democrats will never win another election again if population estimates continue the way they are right now. Democrats, the only way they can win elections is by importing an entirely subsistent voter block from other countries. It is the only way. People don't want a fucking thing to do with Democrat policies. They don't want anything to do with Democrats. So the only way they can win is by importing a totally separate electorate. There is no conspiracy theory. This is patently what's happening right now.
Nobody wants anything to do with Democrats, brother. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, you got people in high schools. You got these young kids in high schools.
I was just
We'll talk
bring
about that in
up.
a second.
Yeah.
But what you said, not moving,
But not
in
on
the
the numbers. Yes, of course there are people, but not on the numbers. People don't want to.
This is the concern I've always had when you talk about, because people are going to vote on whether the country is moving in the right direction. That's going to be, and I don't know how that question was asked. It all matters how that question was asked. Who did they ask? How did they ask the question? What were the answers? And all that matters. Just because you say, a poll shows that the vast majority of Americans, or whatever, the majority of Americans believe the country is not moving in the right direction. Okay, well, you got to break that down and dissect that a little bit. But this whole issue, George, on immigration is a difference between what you do versus how you do it. I'm going to say it again. It's true. And I'll use the Uvalde trial example. Obviously, the jury saw what we were arguing, but how we argued it mattered. How we dealt with it mattered. We could have, and I'm not saying this to brag. I promise you. Please hear my heart. The vast majority of lawyers would have lost that case. We were very strategic on how we handled that case, knowing how sensitive the matter was, understanding that we're dealing with a lot of emotion. This is what you're dealing with here: sensitivity and emotion. And I don't think the administration has handled the how very well. The what, to George's point, to the elections point, I support. I think the majority of people support that. I won't say vast majority, but the majority of people support that. It's the how, and people are getting caught up in the how, and that's why you're losing people like Joe Rogan and Andrew Tate and all these other people that had an influence on this election. They did. They had an influence on Republicans winning, and they're going to have an influence on Republicans losing, God forbid. I hope it doesn't happen in November, and in 2 more years in 28, and that really matters too. Again, I want this country to thrive, and I believe that conservative ideology will thrive this country overall. Even people that disagree with it, I think they will be blessed in the end on this. This is different. Joaquin Castro and all these people just talking about this, and that little boy, which is a horrible picture, of course, but nobody let that kid out there for 5 hours. The dad left him. He runs away. That's left out in the narrative. And then what do you do with a child? Okay, you keep him together, well, then he's going to be in detention. Should he be treated fairly? Absolutely. Humanely, you bet. But, I mean, at some point, the parent made a decision. He took a risk. He came to a country hopefully to better his child. I get that. And then, but there's consequences to that. And then what do you think is going to happen? If there's no other family members for that child to go to, there's going to be issues. And to say that we just cut out ICE, cut out immigration, these young people today in high schools are saying immigrants are welcome here. Okay, well, start with your house, kid. Ask mommy and poppy. The people that bought your clothes, ask them if they can have. How about your gas money? Why don't you share your gas money? How about your Nintendo or whatever the hell you do with your hunchback? Go do that because you're sitting at a screen all day long. Why don't you share some of your resources to these people if you really believe? So I call bullshit on that. I mean, again, be careful the world you help create. Are you willing to live in the world you help create? And until it touches you, until your front porch, I think people are untested on that. And that applies to us. That applies to the left, the right, conservatives, liberals, progressives, whatever. That's all I'm saying. Test your theory. So this is my opinion, George, is on the how. 'Cause the perception is not good. And there's conservatives that are like, oh, I don't like the way this is being done. I like what we're doing, but I don't like how we're doing it. Now, is there, to your point, George, is there another way to do it? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not against what's happening right now. I think we do need to worry about this. I mean, look what's happening in Spain. Look what's happened in the UK. We have to worry about illegal immigration. Bill Clinton said it. He was worried about it. And the president of the United States in 1995, Democrat Bill Clinton, was correct. That's it. He was correct. He's correct when he says it, and a Republican that says it today is correct also. Now, how you deal with that is a whole different ballgame. Okay, so we got to keep that in mind when we're doing all this stuff.
Let me follow up on the question that you asked because you're
Sure.
wondering how the questions were asked, and it's interesting because these two polls literally came out at the same time. The Rasmussen reports, this going back to January 13th or so, Rasmussen reports revealed that 2/3 of the country supports Trump's efforts to round up and deport illegal aliens. Now, Salo, this is interesting. You've got a significant portion of independents, most independents. You've got 33% of Democrats who agree with that. And you got 2/3 of Hispanics who agree with that. At the same time, the Wall Street Journal puts out a poll. And here's the two questions. One, would you say that things in the country are going in the right direction or headed in the wrong direction? Question two, all other things being equal, if the election for Congress were held today, would you be more likely to vote for the Republican candidate or the Democrat candidate for Congress? 55, here's the results. 39% feel the country's going in the right direction. 55% saying it's going in the wrong direction. On the second question, 43% of respondents said they'd vote Republican, while 47% said they'd vote Democrat. The same people.
Sounds like a loss to
The
me.
same poll that said, absolutely, we need these people out of here. So my conclusion, and I don't know, I'm inferring here. My conclusion is people are on board with the what, but not on board with the how.
That's right. That's one.
And what's interesting to me is, and again, do these people actually sit back and seriously consider what other how do you have in mind? I'm genuinely curious. I don't know how you can say, oh yeah, it's going the wrong direction. I don't like everything. How? Now, so admittedly, some of this is the economy. I got it, but immigration is suffocating the news. I mean, this is all you hear about. Mm-hmm. Those right? I mean, what do you hear? Trump's a Nazi. It's always the same shit. National media, Trump's a Nazi, and Gestapo tactics, and white supremacy, and racist, and they hate foreigners, and it's all the same shit playing over and over and over again. This is all Americans here. And then again, you hear the furor on the streets, and then you hear the shootings. And I guess I'm asking, who created these circumstances? Who created this environment? Do people not think through? And I'm worried for America that people can't think rationally.
You know the answer to that, brother, and that's why the strategy has to incorporate that. Our strategy in trial had to incorporate the fact that nobody thought that they lumped Adrian into the 376 officers and the 77-minute wait. We had to, so we could say, well, what do you mean? Don't you logically, don't you see that once we show you this evidence, it's going to just wait? No, it's not going to work that way. We were very specific in our messaging in voir dire and jury selection, in our opening statements, and how we handled witnesses and certain witnesses, how we presented things. We made strategic decisions in the middle of the trial. It's that type of analysis that's not happening with this administration or Republicans, in my opinion, because everybody was like, hey, life jacket, please, with all this invasion on the border when things were happening. And then they voted strongly against that. Now they seem to have forgotten that. And yes, that happens because people are emotional. They make emotional decisions. And that's why when I make my criticisms and I give my advice to the chagrin of Carlos Danger, and other people, they think I disagree with Trump on everything, which is insane. Just because I don't believe he walks on water doesn't mean that I don't support him, because I do support him. I voted for him multiple times. But all I'm saying is I want to win in the end. You can say, oh, don't disagree with with Daddy Trump or Papa Trump and he's the Pope and all this other bullshit. And then okay, great. You can suck Trump off and then we lose the midterms. And then Trump's sterile. And then Vance or Rubio lose in 28, and then welcome in Newsom or AOC or Bernie Sanders or another nut job. And then now what? But Trump was right. Don't disagree with Trump. I mean, are we stupid? How about I want to win? I just want to win. I want conservative ideology to influence and to control our society. And I think that blesses even people that aren't conservative, whether they know it or not. It's not because I want to dominate. I just want some ideas have to win out, and there's consequence to those ideas. That's all. And we should be able to defend it. We should be strategic about it, and we should win hearts and minds. That's what happened in this last election. Hearts and minds were won over, and it brought over Joe Rogan, and it brought over Andrew Tate, not Andrew Tate. Well, Andrew Tate too. Andrew Schultz, sorry. And it brought over all these other guys that are Nelk and all these other people that are huge influencers. And Charlie Kirk was doing what he was doing, and everybody, and there was this synergy. And that's how you win elections. We took a play out of the progressives playbook and turned it on its head. But now we've forgotten that all of a sudden. And everybody abandoned ship because everybody wants to do something else for themselves. And everybody's Laura Trump and everybody's gone. And you got a bunch of yahoos running the show. And here we have it. Here we are. And so I'm not encouraged for November. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm trying to rally the troops. Somebody wake the fuck up. Sorry, no other way to say it. Someone better wake up.
And we have to watch how we communicate these plans.
And worry about messaging and make decisions. Right. And just because something is permissible doesn't mean it's beneficial. It's a biblical principle, by the way. Paul wrote that. So we have to think about, okay, yes, George, how? And yes, don't people think that this is how else we're going to do it? No, people don't think that way. No. Obviously. Look at the polls you just shared. In the same poll, you have different messaging coming out of it. So that tells you what we're dealing with. And if we don't adjust to what we're dealing with, then we're going to lose in November and in 28.
And that needs to happen. We need we got to frame this appropriately for people. We need to just come clean and explain, hey, here's what we're dealing with here, man. Here's the immensity of what we're trying to deal with. We have to correct this. I mean, truly, this is about ultimately, and make it personal. This is about the dilution of personal electoral power. Your vote won't matter one damn bit. That's where we're going here. We're not taking the measures necessary to save our own country. There's going to be we're one election away from not being able to save our own country. Our votes just simply will not matter. Remember, and let me just break it down in this way. In 2016 and 2020, the entire presidential election turned on less than 100,000 votes in 7 swing states. We have evidence, overwhelmingly, of millions of illegal aliens voting in congressional and presidential elections. We have evidence of that. And all I'm saying is, how long are we from a point where it simply doesn't matter? It doesn't matter how much you bitch about whatever issue, because your vote simply won't translate to a change in direction for the country, where Democrats have a permanent hold on power. This is where we are. We're on the precipice of that. We're not years and years and years away. I'm not over-exaggerating, and I'm not hyperbolizing. This is legit. We're seeing it.
We have a comment from Randy Adams. He says the people that think the country is going in the wrong direction have problems paying bills because everything's too high. But the problem is we brought in those 12 million people in 4 years, and they got to eat, they got to drive, they have to have a place to live, and that's what's been driving the cost of living up. And so even if Americans say the country's not going in the right direction, it goes back to immigration and that problem again.
That's messaging, Randy. That's my point about messaging. What messaging are the Republicans doing right now? And look, when it comes to illegal aliens and immigrants, I think I came from an era where when you thought about illegals, you thought about Mexicans coming over to work. Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna. This is the bias I think we're dealing with. Even some of these young people or other people. They're thinking about the Mexicano coming over, just trying to feed their family. Excuse me, they want a better life. They're not back then. The vast majority were not committing crimes, and all those things. maybe drinking and driving or whatever is family violence, but I mean,
they were hard workers that
it's
were
different.
trying-
Yeah, it was.
right,
Look, and if
right.
you don't acknowledge that, then you're not paying attention. But then when you have Haitians coming over, and you have people from Islamic countries coming over, and then Chinese coming over, communists
Somalians.
and Somalians, and
South
all this other
American
thing,
countries, and
and
West
all
African
these
countries,
different countries that are not going to assimilate, that don't have even close to similar values, that are bringing in different ideologies. I mean, then you have a problem. And this is the problem that Spain's dealing with, and Europe and UK and all the other deals that they're dealing with. But I think most people think, a lot of people, not most, a lot of people are thinking, what's wrong with they're more tolerant. I mean, in my instincts, I'm instinctually more tolerant to the Mexican illegal coming over to work than the Somalian or the Haitian coming over to implement or live by Sharia law and tell my constitution to fuck off. That I don't want that. I want someone that's going to go along to get along and work and do a job that nobody else wants, quote unquote. That's not what we're dealing with today. It's a completely different illegal, and so that's what people are thinking in their minds. I think a lot of people in South Texas and even other places, they're not playing out what the implications are, to your point and Randy's point and other people's point on, to if this were to continue. Look, there's a reason why overdoses are down by 20% and murders are down by 20%. There's a reason. That's a national statistic that is a fact within a year. Why? What also has decreased? Are we saying the church has more influence? The church is still neutered in many aspects. Or what are we saying? What happened? So we have to dissect that fact. Is it a good thing that murders are down? So under Biden and this idea with this illegal influx, things are up, overdoses, drugs, and murders. And over here, they're down. Okay, let's analyze it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people are wrong that have made that claim. It's not my claim. I'm repeating someone else's claim. So all I'm saying is we got to do that type of, for me, I need to do that type of analysis. And I think it shows that having a strong border and having people get here the right way and having an assimilation process matters to the health of a country and a culture of a country. And you're going to lose it. I'm telling you, you're going to lose it.
George, I think that you've even kind of changed your mind about get rid of all of them. Make it all, go back to your country where you came from. Try to come in the right way. But Randy goes on to say, don't we need a better work program? He does businesses with people that go back and forth from Mexico. They help their family. They come back. They're keeping their nose clean. What can be done about that?
Immigration reform.
But Randy, we had a working model prior to 1965. And we had to go back and revisit it. I mean, America has the right to surgically decide who comes into its interior for strategic purposes. Look, we have lots of talent in this country. We do. And I don't think we're very good at placing that talent. And we've privileged foreigners over American talent. That's a fact. That's been going on for decades. So we got to go back where we privilege Americans, as we should. Imagine that, an American nation privileging American citizens for American roles in American companies doing, providing value to the country. Imagine that. That was the standard prior to 1965. And then we open the floodgates and we get people to come into the country who have no allegiance to the Constitution, who have no intent on assimilating, who have no love for our culture. This is the train we've been on. We got to get off that track. This is very, very dangerous. Look, I went back. I subscribe to a journal, an electoral studies journal. It's an academic journal. In 2014, an electoral studies journal concluded at that time that roughly 6.4% of non-citizens had actually voted in 2008. And at that time, they anticipated it was in the millions, at least 1.5 to 2 million people. And roughly, they had said that roughly 1/4 of non-citizens in the United States were likely registered to vote. 6.4% had actually voted. 82% had voted for Barack Obama. Shocker of shockers. And they concluded that it is inarguable that it changed electoral outcomes. This is a reality. This is in 2008. Is anyone going to argue with a straight face that the illegal immigrant situation hasn't worsened dramatically since 2008? This is where we are. I happen to believe that these people are up in arms. I don't think it's going to get any better. I think they're going to become more and more militant. I think what's happening in Minnesota, they're going to attempt to nationalize it. There's already efforts to try to nationalize this across the country and to bring mass deportation efforts to a complete halt. They know what's going on. What I just said about the Census Bureau is a legitimate issue, at 20-25% population estimates in 2030. You're seeing an exodus out of blue states into red states. This is a congressional apportionment. This is how it works. They can vote. Illegal aliens can vote. But if you are in a diluted world and you think they can't, and you think, consider birthright citizenship. This is coming before the court right now. Court's about ready to rule on this, Nico, here in the next month or two. If you don't think illegal aliens can vote, then birthright citizenship ought to disabuse you of a false sense of comfort.
What I would have done if I was advising the administration, I would have had a press conference before you go into each area. And I know it's warning them, but who cares? I mean, you got to avoid something like this. It's not like you're surprising them. You're coming in with all these people, and they know that they're making the rounds. And I would say, look, we're going to do an operation here. We're going to be doing this. This is why. This is what people voted for. This is how we're going to do it. We don't want any trouble. If you want to make your voice stay, don't interfere. Don't do this. Don't do that. If that happens, this is what's going to happen to you. I mean, you got to prime the pumps on
Instead,
this deal.
they chose shock and awe.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why that a lot of people frown on no-knock warrants. A no-knock warrant is police, boom, break open, and what the hell? And then there's a lot of return fire. Someone bust open my door without me knowing it's police. Anybody can say police, and kick open my door. How do I know it's police? How do I know it's the police? I mean, then you're talking about a lot of deadly force used. So that's a no-knock warrant. A knock warrant, police, open up, police. They give a reasonable amount of time, and then boom, they break in. And then, but they can get rid of the evidence. I got it. But then you're having a bunch of less shootouts, So there's an argument on both ways on no-knock warrants versus not. This is an equivalent. The shock and awe.
Shock and awe would have been fine for the criminal element.
Yeah,
but not for your average illegal alien.
But the people protesting aren't making that distinction. They're not making that distinction,
and they don't care to.
But the media has a part to play in this. They're not reporting all the illegals that are committing heinous crimes. I mean, a couple was killed. Little girls are being raped. Not over. It's happening. It's happening a lot, and it's not being reported because they don't want to make immigrants are protected class now, right? Illegal immigrants are a protected class apparently. And no, just report the news. That's why this shit drives me batshit crazy. Just report the news and report it fairly. That's why I went bonkers on our local media during the trial. The weekend before the verdict, we got a verdict, not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. And that Saturday, I went apeshit on our local media. I said, you guys are not, if this is going with the way that it appeared that it was going, because everyone sensed that it was heading in that direction. We didn't know for sure. We didn't let our guard down. We had a lot of work to continue to do. But, everybody outside of the local media, people covering it, you see the sentiment, oh, we're praying for a not guilty. I really hope this guy's a scapegoat. This is ridiculous. All that the narrative has changed. Yeah. Well, here, if you're not watching it live and you're not watching yourself, and I went as and I called this one station. I'm not trying to call them out right now because they've apologized and whatever, course corrected, whatever. And I said, where's the cross examination on this? Why didn't you report the rest of this? That changes the whole narrative. Your bullshit story is bullshit now because the narrative's changed. And then they go, we went back and it was incomplete. The whole cross-examination was left out. Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's why the comments are the way they are. And so God forbid if there's violence against Adrian or somebody, a family member, then it's on your hand because you're fomenting this by not reporting accurately. Report accurately, and if somebody gets pissed off and does something stupid, that's on them. But the media is part of this bullshit. And this is where that's never going to get corrected. And that's why it's important to have the Andrew Schultz and the Joe Rogans. That's why I say I'm not playing to them. It's a strategic part of campaigning now. To this social media aspect of it. And if you lose these advocates that are equivalent or are taking the place of mainstream media, then you're losing this game. And that's why the polls are the way they are, George. And I can't say it. I get fired up because I know the ramifications of this. And so you just gotta be aware of this. And so I'll let you talk, but the media is a part of it, George. There's a lot going on here, and it's not any one fix.
And and they're far more organized than we are. That we didn't chat about it, but we can chat about it now for a couple seconds. There's evidence now that they're using an anti-ICE signal chat framework inside Minnesota. It's usually divided up by city council. And you've got politicians on there, you've got media, you've got activists. It's a slew of various left-wing groups that are coordinating. And what's happening, coordinating these so-called protests, which are really riots. And what's happening is that they're basically coordinating for the day and then they delete their record on Signal for that day. And the next day, it starts all over again. And so it's very difficult because it's highly encrypted. And so we've had a couple of – the reason we know about this, and the FBI is on it, is because there's independent journalists that make a name for themselves now. There's two that I know of. Cam Higbee, he's on Twitter, and Data Republican is on Twitter. And since they can't take they are on Signal. They got on Signal undercover, but you can't on Signal take screenshots. So they use their phone to take a picture and to document this separately, and able to post that information and then forwarded it. And they've also revealed thousands of donors to the cause. And these people have just skirmished like rats the high grass since. And yes, and no one's going to be surprised to hear that a lot of this is Soros Open Society Foundation. Highly organized effort to nationalize this stuff. Alex Preddy wasn't just some random ICU nurse that walked onto it. Renee Good wasn't just some random mom. This is coordinated. And yes, it is violent. There's nothing peaceable about it. And so they drum this up. You have the response that you have from law enforcement. But then they turn into victims.
But they should be arresting them. They should have
arresting
separate
them.
resources. This is where I don't know why they would let ICE be subjected to this. Exactly. Why would you let ICE be subjected to this? Go in with stronger forces, go in with partners, state and federal partners, and arrest people immediately. Deal with that. I'd rather deal with an illegal arrest, of an overdrawn, maybe an arrest that they shouldn't have done.
At least it diffuses the situation.
But no one's getting shot.
Yeah, exactly.
But it should be noted that the local officers, they're not participating. They're not helping ICE at all
on
either.
Where you're at.
Well, in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up what you brought up when it came to Don Lemon, and that was jury selection. And that also brings us to Spain, what you were talking about, George. I know that's so many layers, but you said, Nico, that Don Lemon thinks that this is just going to be a cut and dry, let him loose with no problem. But even though we see what's happening in Minneapolis, and it would make anybody think that that was a blue state all through and through. I mean, the pockets of red in Minnesota are big and huge, and we just don't, as the public, if we're paying attention, see that. And so when you said jury selection, he has no idea that they could be pulling from the parts of Minnesota that are red.
That's right.
And I think that what we see on the media obviously is controlled by, mainstream media, and that is to show that, these people care about the illegals. And, I haven't seen one illegal person that they are trying to arrest in Minneapolis. All I see is the people of Minneapolis, and it's very confusing.
No, and I think as part of what Nico said in terms of a communication strategy, and I've heard a couple of individuals from spokesmen for ICE make this point and make it rather lucidly, and it's an important point that this is happening all across the country. ICE is involved in multiple states across the country, and it's peaceful. It's uneventful. It's happening all over the state of Texas. That was the analogy that I think it was Todd Blanche is his name. He's a deputy for ICE, certainly a spokesperson. And
Todd Blanche was the DOJ, right? Is a lawyer?
Yeah, I thought
Todd Blanche is the deputy attorney general. I thought Todd Blanche. He used to be a defense. He was one of Trump's defense lawyers.
Yeah, I need to check that out, but I'm pretty sure I saw the interview.
Maybe you're right.
I thought he did an
I'm just
excellent
saying,
job.
I want to see it.
And I think you're right, but he's been speaking on it. You're absolutely right. It's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Yeah.
He's been talking about this. He's been a great spokesperson for the cause to explain, look, this is happening all over the country.
Yeah.
And what's supposed to happen, you're supposed to have local support of federal law enforcement operations, and this happens without a hitch. But it consistently, in blue state, in blue city after blue city, you have true insurrectionists. You do. And you have politicians that are aiding and abetting that effort. I think you ought to arrest their fucking asses. Mm-hmm. Because if not, you're going to see more of this happen, not less. So there ought to be a communication strategy. I love what you said about, hey, warn. Put a warning out there and say, here's what's going to happen. Here's the consequences.
Right.
This is
coming. Send the resources in with them to back it up. It's an extra step, yes, but I'm telling you, this is because look, this not only look, whether we support Alex Brady or not, he's an image bearer, and it was unfortunate. He shouldn't have lost his life. Now you can just say you can blame it on him, blame it on the cop, regardless. I'm just saying, we don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't want that. And if we say that if you resist arrest, you should have the death penalty, I say you please rethink that position. So that's why I'm trying to pull people back and look objectively at this situation. That's all. I'm not saying he shouldn't be arrested. All I'm saying is, where does this go? Play this out. And if you don't think, aside from the fact that a life was lost, unfortunately, and an image bearer of God was lost, but strategically, this has been horrible for Republicans. Horrible.
But you have a political movement that wants more of this.
I got
the Democrats
that.
want
but
more
if the Republicans are smart, they know that.
Yes.
So they're playing into it. You're
right.
playing in their backyard. There was something that, but one of my law partners, Jason Goss, said he was taught by one of his mentors years ago, is that you want the opposing counsel to play in your backyard, to play under your rules. That's what we did in the last trial. And we're playing in their backyard. You know that's what they want. If George Araujo knows it, as smart as he is, you're going to tell me people in the administration don't know this crap?
But that's why they should have aired the Homan Walls beating, because just like when we saw Trump sitting next to Zelensky and the dude just fell apart. I mean, what happened in that meeting? Nothing happened in that meeting. Seriously, do you think?
Well, it sounded like it's going to be more cooperative. Now, I'm skeptical of that because
But
in the
everybody
aftermath of
said
the meeting,
then, oh, well, that means Trump is just caving, because
Right,
we
and I don't-
didn't see what was said.
I didn't think from sending Homan. I didn't conclude from sending Homan that there was a cave. The cave was from an ex post that came from the White House that said that they were going to target and focus on criminal illegal aliens, and that's not enough. That's simply my point. I like what Tom Homan said. This is not going to deter the overall objective, which is to go after people who are here illegally in the country and to deport them. Now, you said that even I was starting to sort of back off this hardened position of deport everybody. I don't think so. It's a nuanced view of this. What I'm saying is, if you are in the system and you are working legally in the system to become legal, that should be considered. Mm-hmm. If you've been trying to follow the law, and yes, you came in the country illegally, and you're trying to follow the law, and
assimilate,
then there ought to be some consideration given to that. Even as I say it, I'm uneasy about it, because I think it's a matter of justice. I think it's grossly unjust that people who are waiting for years to get in here, or people who are here, and once they're here, like we did, it took us 9 years, my family, 9 years before we became naturalized, to go through the system, to follow the law, to come in legally, and then you're still not legal, and then you spend 9 years to go through the process. There's millions of people who are going through that process. It's a gross injustice
I don't think
that
you're
you can cross the
advocating
border.
to jump ahead of them. You're just saying get them in the system. You're not saying they should go ahead
I guess
of those people.
my point is I'm being contradictory, I think, because if
No, I
I'm
don't think
saying
I'm
people
not
are,
trying to. I mean, being too much
I
of a
feel like I'm
defense
being
attorney,
contradictory, Nico,
and I'm
because-
defending you. No, I think what you're saying is we have to have a practical way to handle this. Now, that's it. Because we can look. I'm an idealist. I get it, and I do. But there has to be an idea where wisdom comes in, right? We'd be shrewd as a snake, but innocent as a dove. Matthew 10. And so we have to think, okay, what do we need to do practically? How do we deal with this? How do you deal with 20 million illegals in your country? I mean, 10 to 14 came in under Biden, but there was already 11 before that. I mean, so you have 25 million. Who knows what it
it's
is
more
now?
than that, brother.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
don't make me irritated. So all I'm saying is there's a bunch. So there has to be a practical side of this. And let's be honest, a lot of there's a majority of those that are not the violent people that we're worried about. So I think what you're saying, George, is there a practical way where someone's been already inappropriately in the system, but they're in the system, paying into the system? If they self-surrender, let's give them an opportunity to get in the back of the line, but at least they're here legally. We're accounted for them. They're off our illegal chart because now they're in the process chart. They don't get ahead of the people that have been waiting like the Araujo family did. And there has to be some of that. There's some self-deporting. They're stopping the inflow, which they did at the border, which is a huge deal. And then there's going after the ones that are violent criminals that we want out of this place. And yes, even the ones that are here illegally that aren't violent, but they've already committed a crime because they're illegally. Is there a way to properly, without being, you don't have to be all bulldog on them, but I get it, they get brushed up in the whole thing. I think what you're trying to say, George, you're trying to deal with every aspect of people's perception on this situation. And look, I think that's a wise way to look at it.
And I guess what I'm saying is I wonder if that's ideal, and it's also impossible to implement.
Maybe.
That's what I worry about. I mean, because it's easy for us to say that, and then they actually have to do the job of getting people out of here. And the Arujos came in legally, by the way. We didn't come in illegally.
In November, and we don't win in 28. All of this is moot. It's going to stop and it's going to reverse. So it doesn't matter.
Americans
if we don't do this right.
Have to walk
none
and
of this
chew gum at the
matters.
same time, Nico. This is why Spain matters, and I'll throw this in. The Spanish government, it's a minority socialist government who, it's a coalition government. So many governments in Europe, you have these coalition parties that come in. There's a plurality. By themselves, they don't have enough to establish a government. So they align with the next sort of most similar party. And so in Spain, you have a socialist government who's run by Pedro Sanchez, president of Spain. President or prime minister, I need to check out on that. And then they align with Podemos, which is a left-wing party. And they decided that they were going to bypass Parliament, and they were going to legalize a half a million illegal aliens overnight. They were going to, quote unquote, regularize them, give them work permits.
Love that word.
Give them permits, and allow them to travel freely anywhere in Spain and in the European Union. Okay? Now, here's the reason for doing that. Conservative majorities have been gaining in popularity on policy. Sound familiar? And they decided, we need to stop the far right, Salo. No, they literally said this. We're going to stop the far right. And so we're going to legalize a 500,000 illegal aliens overnight. See, we're righteous. We don't want those bad, meanie far right people to get in power. So what we're going to do is we're going to break the law, and we're going to fast track 500,000 illegal aliens, most of them from West Africa. And guess who they're going to vote for? The far right? No. So they literally took the most quote unquote conspiratorial portions of the Great Replacement Theory and made it policy. And then when you speak up, you're racist.
Well, but the irony.
Well, fuck you. Because that's happening there, and it's happening here. That's my point. This is the only reason I brought that up. This literally just happened. They're not hiding what they're doing, Nico. They're not being subtle. They're not saying, well, we're not really trying to do that.
Trump does a chess move and says, okay, I'm going to legalize all of you.
Oh, then he gets their votes?
He gets all the votes.
I don't know if that works.
Find a bunch of Scandinavians and bring them up to
right.
Well, here's the deal. The irony about Spain is, for our resident history guy, I'm sure he's going to get super excited. In the early 1700s, Spain was conquered by the Moors. They were conquered by Muslims, Islamic people, the North African.
The
Islamics.
Reconquista.
Yeah. And so that's in the and then for 700 years, roughly, they were conquered. They were a conquered Muslim country until they fought wars to bring it back. So they're going to go through the same bullshit again because we forget our history too. Look what happened in New York with Mamdani. I mean, this is insane.
For one reason only, and that's power. That's it. Just power. Doesn't matter what the consequences.
Sid made a comment, and she says that if you're illegal in Mexico, you face several consequences: felony charges, illegal immigration considered felony under Mexican law, which can lead to penalties of 2 years in prison, fine of up to 500,000 pesos.
Well, no, but she's right. I mean, look, we're the only dumbasses that do it this way.
Right.
I mean, like my wife has a dual citizenship. She's a Mexican citizen and an American citizen. But I can't I can't own property in Mexico. I can't because I'm not a citizen. I'm not a Mexican citizen. But yet you can come over. I mean, we're stupid. If I have a kid born in Mexico, well, first of all, I wouldn't do that. But I'm just saying that doesn't make me a Mexican citizen. I mean, you understand my point? So we have to really, really think, and to Randy's point earlier about true immigration reform. I think there should be a stronger work program. The one that maybe George is referencing from 1965, or I haven't looked at that one. I'm just saying there should be companies that can say, look, I want to sponsor these workers. They're going to work. We're going to keep track of them. They have a work permit. They're working for me. Now, if they don't work for you or they do something or they break the law, commit a felony, maybe not a misdemeanor, but a felony, then maybe there's some type of repercussions for that. But we need a strong work program because if there are people that want to legally come in and send money back, which is, like I said, in my era, that's what the idea of an illegal was. It's just little mecanito trying to get over here and make some money and send it back home. And there's still that going on. Then we should have that program. My issue, even though that's not, it should be done right. It needs to be done right. My issue is, and I think is the critical issue for us, is when people are bringing a different ideology, and yes, dare I say an Islamic ideology, to this country. Wake up. Study these countries. Study the ideology. Study Sharia law. Listen to what they're saying. Look what they've done in the UK. Understand the mission. Understand what the ideology is, this political movement wrapped in a religion. Understand what that means and the hadiths and all that stuff in the Quran, and understand chapter 8 and what that says about, the non-believer, the people of the book. I mean, and then when it's implemented and see how it's trying to be implemented in other countries. That's all
and
I'm
the Trump
saying.
administration would agree with you. They have bans on a lot of Islamic countries for that reason. I'm going to take the sort of an aggressive position on this. I'm saying at this point we have 1 million people that are coming into the country, I think, every year legally. And my view is we got plenty of people here already. We're $2 trillion, more than $2 trillion in debt and student loans. We have American universities who are handing out degrees like candy, a lot of them worthless. We need to revisit all of that shit and make sure people are getting degrees and maybe open up trade schools and trade programs that actually benefit the economy of the United States.
Yep.
We got lots of American citizens who are graduating. Hey, I don't mean to sound uncompassionate here, but you can take all of the foreign worker visa shit and shove it straight up your ass. We don't need it anymore. Get rid of it. Stop it. Do what we did for 40 years in this country and just freeze it. Shore up your own people. Do good by your own family. Train them up. Give them jobs. Increase the cost of living. That's what we ought to do. Focus on our own family, for goodness sakes. We don't need people from other countries coming here unless it is determined by the United States government that somebody brings a particular set of skills. Not to sound like Liam Neeson on Taken. A particular set of skills that we need, Nico. Look, I mean, this is. People say, give me an example. Well, Albert Einstein was a great example.
That sounds good, George, but I don't know if it plays out that way because I know way too many business owners that deal with a lot of. I'm just saying, Randy, obviously, listening is one of them. I'm not saying that we can't get there, but there's got to be some transition period. You can't just go cold turkey and say no, because until you train up those. And I agree with what you said, though. Theoretically, ideologically, yes, that we should train up our own country first. And I think there's laziness here. We got a lot of issues with American workers here, or at least the young people. All I'm saying is you can't do that cold turkey. I have clients and I have people that I know that have businesses that work in ranching or work on the border or do transportation or trucking, and they're like, man, we can't. I'm having trouble finding workers. So,
but, George,
well, I wasn't suggesting a cold turkey.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is stop the bleeding.
Got it. Yeah.
We have enough people here. We don't need to bring in more illegals. We don't need to bring more people from other countries, even legally. That's my point. I would stop. Look, I'm at a point where I'm saying you stop illegal immigration. Just stop it. We have enough people here. We have foreign nationals that are here. We have a huge pool of people, legal and illegal. Just stop the bleeding altogether. Now, the Trump administration has put bans on at least it was 39 countries. I thought the number jumped to 75. It's quite a few countries. I think it's a good idea. Stop it. And to just work with the people that you have here, shore up your situation here, for goodness sakes. Look, the Democrats are freaking out over this. You're going to see more outrage, Nico. I think you're going to see, again, I'm of the opinion you're going to see a nationalization of what's happening in Minnesota. It's not like if ICE was working with kid gloves and they were Mr. Rogers on steroids, they'd still be doing what they're doing on the streets. They have to have an illegal alien.
The opposition?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is,
to have an illegal voter
look,
block.
I'm not saying, I don't think anybody's advocating that don't ultimately get to what's happening now. It's how you get there matters. I mean, again, I'm going to use the example of cross-examination in a trial. My style is I don't start off like a bull in a china store on cross-examination. But if a witness takes me there, I can be tenacious, as you know, and it gets aggressive and it gets contentious and all that other things. But again, it doesn't matter how I feel about my cross-examination. If I lose those 12 people in that jury box, it doesn't matter to me. If we lose those elections, none of this shit matters. It's all wonderful talk on a podcast, and people can type in their comments and criticize each other all we want. But if we don't win the elections, if we don't get that jury verdict, none of this matters. We're just all listening to ourselves in an echo chamber.
It's true enough. But I just want to implore for Americans to take back their country. There's no other way to do it but to have mass deportations. There's no other way to do it. The great replacement theory isn't a theory. We've been seeing it for 50 years. It's a fact of life. Between 1965 and 2025, there were 15 presidential elections. And in only one of those elections did a non-white demographic vote as a majority for the Republican candidate. I'm going to say it again. Between 1965 and 2025, there were 15 presidential elections. And in one out of those 15, one, did a non-white demographic vote as a majority for the Republican candidate. We've been seeing it happen over and over and over again, and Democrats have been talking about it. They're out there saying it's exactly what they're trying to do. Pretty soon, you people, you'll get what's coming to you. I mean, you got Muslims talking openly about this on social media, but Democrats have been talking about it as a matter of policy. And then when you bring their own words to their face, they accuse you of being racist. And Americans coil up in a fetal position. In the meantime, you're giving away your country. So we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Yes, the administration needs a better communication strategy. They don't need to be stupid while they do this. It's important to be smart. But if you back off from mass deportation, you lose this country.
Karen, any last comments before we wrap up?
No, but I was thinking about one thing you said, George. You said people that have had businesses, I'm talking about non-citizens, illegals, who have had businesses for years should be considered in the line. And then the only thing that I could think of was the Somalians who have had these businesses for year after year after year, but they've also been stealing from the government.
I'm stuck on that one. If you've owned a business and you've been here illegally and you haven't made any efforts to become legal, I'm not suggesting those people are given due deference.
Okay.
I mean, you've flaunted the system. You came in illegally and you've blown off the system like whatever, F you. You rode on the coattails of a Biden approach to illegal immigration, and now ICE shows up for you. I'm not suggesting that you get some special disposition. I'm not. Now, if you are in the system, if you're literally
You've already
working,
gone through the process
you're working
of
on
making that way.
getting legalized.
But then ICE wouldn't come after you then.
No, they actually have.
Well,
that's happened. If you remember a month ago.
Well, then they shouldn't.
That's my point. I'd be willing. That's why I thought, man, I think I'd be willing to create a caveat for that. If you're literally trying to become legal and you're in the system, you're becoming legalized in the process right now, and they come for you, I'd be willing to, in my view as an American citizen, I'd be saying, give that person.
Well, another thing, everybody's always talking about, well, no one's going to do those jobs. The illegals have to be here to do those jobs. And then Richard, I know it's funny. Richard says we need to also stop paying our own citizens for not working.
Oh my goodness! Don't even get me started. Sounds like another topic.
Yeah, that's good. Well, guys, thanks for I guess the last after show of the last radio, but the new.
I'm not sad.
Show.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm not sad.
Good,
I love
man.
it.
We'll be in the I guess our home studio starting next week, and it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting, huh? 9:30. Yeah, 9:30. But we'll have a thing up to tell you just in case you show up a little early. Start at 9:30 to get everybody used to it, and we'll be. And to look if it's in your heart, if you're a business or you know someone that has a business that wants to sponsor,
yes.
we really want to expand our reach and really we're going all in on social media like so many others have done. And we enjoyed our time on the radio. It kind of exposed us to you guys, and it was a blessing. And now we've kind of moved on. And I think the season is right. And in stewardship analysis of our resources, I think it's better to reallocate resources this way and go from here. So thanks for sticking with us. Joe, spread the word, get people talking, reach out to Karen.
Yes.
Make your comments. We'll try to respond to them if we can. And God bless you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week at 9:30. Same show, not on the radio. Find your social media platform. Bye-bye. God bless you.